Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. And before I do get started, I would like to make a disclaimer. I know that I am wearing a I've been wearing this beanie hat for quite some time now, for like the last almost month now or something like that. And the reason for that is because, well, for those who don't know, and for those who are wondering why I've been wearing this lately, is because I've been growing my hair out more. And you know, it's kind of at a weird stage right now. So yeah, I just keep that in mind. But nonetheless, we're here going to be talking about all the bands that I believe have never released a bad album. Now, there are several bands that I think could have made the list that just barely made the cut, such as As I Lay Dying, Demon Hunter, and August Burns Red. But some of those bands just have some records that are just holding them back from this list. So yeah, with that said, we'll now get into the actual list. And this is in no particular order, by the way. So first up, we got Killswitch Engage. Now, I've said on several occasions that I think Killswitch Engage is pretty much a necessity for any metalcore listener, since, you know, they're one of the founders. And yeah, what can I say? Great band. I mean, you could go through their discography and not find one bad album by them. Sure, there's albums better than others, but that's any band. Yeah, I think Killswitch Engage has never released a bad album. Great band. Next up, we got Breaking Benjamin. Now, I think this is one that a lot of you guys are going to like and agree with. And you know what? I gotta say that you're right. This band has never released anything bad. Now, they have had, you know, We Are Not Alone and Dark Before Dawn, which were very easily their weakest albums. But those albums aren't so bad. They're at least good albums. I mean, Breaking Benjamin has great albums, and they also have good albums. So I had to put Breaking Benjamin on the list. And as you guys know, Breaking Benjamin is one of the most important bands in my musical journey. So yeah, because without them, I wouldn't have gone into hard rock and then gone into heavy metal and things like that. So next up, we got the band Tool. Now, I think this is another one that a lot of people will agree with. I mean, this band only has 4 albums and some rare stuff as well. Definitely a great band, and you can look through all 4 of their studio albums, and not one of them has many flaws. I think this band has a lot to offer, and I can understand why they may be an acquired taste. But yeah, they're an excellent band, and I think they're a necessity for any prog metal or prog rock fan. Tool is just an excellent band. You really can't go wrong with any of their albums. So next up, we got Led Zeppelin. Once again, they have albums better than others, of course, but if you really go through their discography, look through, they haven't really released anything bad. I mean, I know some people might say that, you know, their later stuff, I'm not going to say new stuff because they haven't released an album in like ages, but I know some people might say that their later stuff just isn't as good as their like really early stuff. While that may be true, I still think this band's entire career was just outstanding. I mean, Led Zeppelin, I think, is a necessity for any hard rock fan. Led Zeppelin is, of course, a great band, and you can't go wrong with them. So next up, we got the band Death. Of course, just an excellent band, and it just makes you wonder, you know, because Death only has 7 albums out, and it was before Chuck Schuldiner, their vocalist, passed away in 2001. May he rest in peace. But it does make you wonder what would have happened if he was still around and they were still continuing as a band. It does make you wonder if they would have had slips in their career. That is an interesting question, and that is all up for speculation, of course, but the albums that we do have out now are fantastic. Again, I don't think Death has ever released a bad album. I know some people like to bash on the album Spiritual Healing, but I actually don't think that album is all that bad, to be honest. I actually really like the album. And it's actually not my least favorite Death album. And I would say that my least favorite is Sound of Perseverance. And I know that's a very unpopular opinion, because I know that album is in, like, some people's top 2, but I don't know. I definitely prefer, you know, the thrashier side of the band than the, you know, the more later stuff. And the higher pitched vocals aren't really for me either. But that's not to say that I don't like the later Death albums. I think all eras of the band are really good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on this list. But no matter how you look at it, this band has never released a bad album. I even think Sound of Perseverance is a good album, even though it's probably my least favorite from the band. Definitely a fantastic group. It's one of those bands where if you're new to them, you could very easily check out one of their albums like that and become a fan of them. So yeah, definitely a fantastic group. I think this is a band you definitely can't go wrong with. The guitar work in this band truly is something. Fantastic group. Next up we got Soilwork, which is one of the best bands from Sweden in my opinion, and you know, I know a lot of people like to bash on their albums Figure Number 5 and Sworn to a Great Divide. I know a lot of people like to say that those are their 2 weakest. I might agree with Figure Number 5, but I actually don't agree with Sworn to a Great Divide. I actually think that's a pretty underrated album. To me, Soilwork's weakest albums are, of course, Figure Number 5 and The Living Infinite. And I know that's another unpopular opinion, to say that The Living Infinite's probably one of their weakest. But I don't know, man. Double albums just, they just don't cope with me. They just don't do it for me as much. But no matter how you look at it, it's still a good album, of course. And of course, it is a really good album. You know, even Soilwork's weaker albums are good. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on the list. So yeah, I don't think Soilwork has ever released anything bad. And like I said, I know a lot of people like to say that Sworn to a Great Divide was, you know, their worst album, but I actually don't think that album is all that bad. The more I listen to it, you know, the more I realize how underrated it is. It's actually pretty good. It's not one of their best, but it's still good. And Soilwork is one of those bands where, you know, they changed their sound, you know, very early on, and you know, they're still really good. I mean, there's a lot of bands that really can't get away with that, you know, change and then not really get the best reception out of it. But Soilwork has really kept it safe with this sound that they've been going with since, like, Natural Born Chaos. But yeah, Soilwork is a great band. Not a bad album from them. Can't go wrong with them. So lastly, we got Insomnium. Now, like I said about Breaking Benjamin, Insomnium has albums that are good, and they also have albums that are great. This is one of those bands where I think that their new stuff is actually better than their older stuff. And I think Winter's Gate is, of course, their best album. It's a near masterpiece. And my second favorite Insomnium album would have to be Above the Weeping World, and then probably Shadows of the Dying Sun. Yeah, Insomnium is just a great band, and it's not really much to say. They can be an acquired taste, and they do lack some replay value, at least, you know, from my experience. But this band overall is really good, and my recent, you know, listens with them have been pretty good. Definitely a great band. I think Insomnium, just a very good band, and I'm very curious to see where they go with their next album. So yeah, there you go, guys. That is a list of bands that I believe have never released a bad album. Now, I know there might be some other bands that I didn't put on the list that may have also never released a bad album that you can think of. But this is just my list for right now, and these are just, you know, the bands that I'm familiar with that, you know, that have never released anything bad from my experience. So, with that being said, I like to hear what you guys think. Are there any bands, in your opinion, that have never released anything bad? And what do you guys think of my list? Feel free to let me know. So, thank you for watching, have a good one, and take care.